You should be able to clear. Okay.
3rd of May, Rabbi Furst, Pirkei Avos.
Again, good morning. As Lou said, this is Rabbi Shlomo Furst Yeshiva Tzemach here in Yerushalayim of Zoom. We're learning slight diversion now for a few days to the chapter in Shmuel Beit, Perek Yud Gimel, discussing and relating to us the Ma'aser of Amnon and Tamar. Let's pick up again where it says here in Pasuk Tes Vav. Who would like to begin to do some reading?
I would.
Okay, go ahead, Lou, if you like.
So you said Ches Vav?
Tesvav.
Tes Vav, got it. Vayisna'aha Amnon Sin'a Gedolah Ma'od. So what's this first word? Yisna'aha?
Right, from Sina, from the word hate. There was a hatred of Ammon. Amnon's hatred.
Amnon's hatred was a very great hatred because the great hatred that he hated was from love. Asher aheva that he had loved. Vayomer la.
Oh, so and so. So let's go slowly here, because this pasuk is probably the pasuk we need to focus on in order to understand what it's doing and what we're discussing over here. And our Mishna we're discussing is a Mishna which is discussing, teaching us about Ava Toli B'Davar, Batla Davar, Batla Ava. So we see here the example that the Chazal use is Amnon had a love for Tamar, and since it was Tali B'Davar, when that thing, that Ava that he had disappeared, so that his love disappeared, right? And here the pasuk, this is what we'll be going back to this to our Mefarshim in a moment. It simply was not a lack of the love that existed now, but there was a complete, absolute hate, tremendous burning hate that he had for her. Once Amnon had fulfilled his physical lusts and violated Tamar, so now it wasn't just a lack of love; it was there was a tremendous, absolute, great hate that he had for her. Right? Just want to see. So there's a reason for that. That's where we left off in our Mefarshim. That there was a reason for this. It wasn't, and that's a sort of a question, because the Mishnah simply says that batala davar batala ava, but it wasn't simply batala ava batala davar batala ava batala davar. It was placed with a hate, right? So I think we were learning the Tashbats. The Tashbats was asking. It was somewhat asking that it doesn't seem to be that this is such a good example, right? That you would try and bring an example where the Ava was based on something, as we said, maybe money, maybe influence or power, maybe beauty, and when that is gone, so the Ava is gone. But here we don't see that. We see there was this extreme, absolute opposite reaction. So, so the Tashbats is as well. If you take a look, if you have your commentary, if you look at the paragraph number 15. Maybe let's review that. You have that paragraph 15 in your document for the Mishnah in Avos here in the 5th parak.
I'm not sure which document that is.
That's the one that we've been working on, except for yesterday.
Oh, okay, let me see if I can get that.
Yeah, should be your most recent print out, probably, unless you printed out the Navi.
15 is the one that starts with a vowel?
15, yes, exactly.
Okay. So you want me to read 15?
Yes, let's review that.
Okay. Aval shetiyeh sina beinehem eno min hadin. But the hatred that's between them is not logical. The Gam ha Mishna lo amra kain. And also the Mishnah doesn't say thus. Ki ha'ahava v'hasina einan kitsavas. Because the love and the hate are not extremes. Shelo yiyeh beinehem emtsa'i. Because there is not between them a medium. There's not a point in between love and hate that's in between. That's the middle. Yesh anashim she'enan lo ohavim v'lo sonim. Because there are people that don't love and they don't hate. The sinas Amnon and the hatred of Amnon, I saw la tana. It was caused yoter al bitul hadavar. It was more than the cause was more than just the nullification of the thing.
Right. That's the point here. Because the pasuk is saying, right, that that this tremendous, overwhelming hatred that Amnon now had for Tamar was not simply because of the fact that that it was batal hadavar, right? Not simply because we'll have to understand what it means in the context of our Mishnah, batal hadavar, when it comes to how they're explaining it in terms of the relationship that existed between Amnon and Tamar. Where's the batal hadavar? That's the question that has to be approached over here.
V'hu ma she'amru b'Sanhedrin, and it is what is stated in Sanhedrin, the Perech Kohen Gadol, in the section about the Kohen Gadol, Nema nakshara bo v'aso keros shifacha. There was a hair that got tangled and split his organ.
Right.
So I guess this applies to Amnon.
Yeah, that was his. See, he's raising the point here. It wasn't simply batal hadavar, the lack of love. The pasuk here is telling you that there was a hatred here. It wasn't simply a lack of love, right? It wasn't a lack of love. It was because of the damage that was done, right? The irreparable damage that was done to him that caused him now to hate Tamar. right? So it wasn't. It's apparently it's not such a good example of batala davar batala ava.
Right. Ve'ein zeh biklau ahava ha misbatlan be ha taval ha hatavtal hadavar. And this is not the general case of a love that becomes nullified through the nullification of the thing.
Right. So that's what we have to try and understand. So that apparently he's leaving this as a question, right? That the Mishnah is learning that it happens to be an example of batala ava, batala davar, batala ava, but it doesn't seem to be that case over here, right?
Right.
So, okay, so I think to maybe try and explain that, one second. Let's go to paragraph number 24 now. We're going to see the Maharal in Prague, right? If I'm not mistaken, the Maharal of Prague is going to hopefully give us a little bit of an insight that might help answer this question. That's in paragraph 24.
24, okay. Derech Chaim al Avos Perich Hey. V'yesh le hakshos gam kain bezeh shamar eze ahava shehaya taluya b'davar zeh ahavas amnon v'tamar. So there is what is this word? Lahak shot?
From the word kasha, there is to ask.
There is to ask also on this statement that the love is dependent on the thing. This is the love of Amnon and Tamar. So umashma ha tasam ahava ena taluya bidavar. And we learn and we derive this. What is this word sasam?
That means general, in general. Love in general.
Love in general is not dependent upon a thing. V'achar kach amar eze ahava she'ena taluya b'davar. And afterwards, it says that this love is not dependent upon a thing.
Okay, one sec, hold on. So one sec, hold on. Let's stop a minute. Let's try and understand what this question is. That it says in the Mishnah, Eza Avishi Toli B'Davar. That's the Ava, which is Avis Amnam and Tamar. Okay, now for what we the relationship, the situation between Amnon and Tamar was an very extreme situation. Okay,
Right.
very extreme, very tragic, very extreme from many different points of view, many aspects. This is the example that Chazal are using for Ava, which is Toli B'Davar. Okay, so this implies, right? What is a normal relationship? Let's say you have a normal relationship. Harry and Sari get married, right? Boy meets girl, right? Harry and Sari get married, live happily ever after, have lots of children. So what would you call that?
I would call it love that's based on a thing.
Well, it's the example of Ava Toli B'Davar is Amnon and Tamar. That's Ava Shetoli B'Davar.
Yeah, but we don't.
Mashma Hastam Ava between Harry and Sally ain't a Toli B'Davar. We're understanding his question.
Oh. If that is an example of something that's dependent, a love that's dependent on something, then therefore we would say that Harry and Sarah is not love that's dependent on something.
Right.
Because it's not like Amnon and Tamar.
Right. It's just not the extreme corrupt situation that existed between Amnon and Tamar. So something which is not as extreme and corrupt as that situation that existed between Amnon and Tamar, you would have to say it's something which that's not Toli B'Davar. So a normal, let's call it a normal, the boy meets girl situation and Harry and Sally get married. That normal, that's the stam situation, the general situation. That apparently, mashma, that apparently would be considered to be, by the Mishna, a ava which is ain't a Toli B'Davar. Right?
No, I'm not getting it. The relationship between Amnon and Tamar,
Right.
we're saying it's extreme.
Right.
We just learned that there's a reason that his organ was split.
Well, that was the seed. That was the hatred. The hatred.
Right. Well, without
The
that, it's
hatred
not
was
extreme.
What?
Without that, then there's no reason to say it's extreme.
No, but we're talking about where was the ava? Before we get to the hatred, where's the ava?
The Ava was based on lust. He had a lust for Tamar. When he satisfied that lust, it was no longer present, and so he didn't love her anymore. But because of the incident with the hair, he came to hate her. But that's outside. That's not really relevant.
Well, again, we don't know. You made a jump. You made an inference. Let's say there was no problem with the hair, and let's say he satisfied his lust. What would have happened then?
He would have lost interest in her.
That's your assumption. You don't have. You see what I mean?
It's my assumption, yeah, based on my experience in the world, that if a person's attraction is based on lust, once he satisfies his lust, he loses the attraction.
Well, if that's the case, then the example you want to bring is not the from Amnon and Tamar.
Yeah, it is. It's a love that was based on a thing, The lust is the thing. And when the lust was gone, the love was gone.
Yeah, but no, we don't. The Navi is not telling us that. That's not what the psukim say. All the psukim say is after he fulfilled his lust and he got damaged in the process of fulfilling his lust, that brought to a hatred.
Right. So clearly, if he hates her, then he doesn't love her.
Right, but you don't know what would have happened if he didn't get damaged, whether his love would exist or not.
Okay, fine. We don't know.
We don't know. So how can you bring an example from Amnon bin Tamar that batala davar batala ava?
Okay, so it must be, since that's the example, that the thing was batal. We can deduce that.
I'm not so sure. I'm not convinced.
Well, then you have to explain to me why it says this is an example.
Exactly. And the question that the Maral is posing is a normal meaning stam ava is considered to be totally bedover. That's a secondary question. That's his primary question.
It's
Okay,
not considered to be totally the bedover. Is that what you just
right.
said? Okay.
Right. A stam relationship.
Well, that
Not
makes sense.
extreme.
That fits in with my supposition.
That what?
This is not a normal relationship because it's based on lust.
Right.
A normal relationship is not based on lust.
Okay. Well, let's see. Let's see what the Maral conclusions are going to be. Let's continue on.
Okay. The acher kach amar eze ahava she'ena talui b'davar. And afterwards we say that this love was not dependent on a thing. Zu ahavas David v'Yonasan. So wait a second. Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm reading it wrong. Afterwards, we say that what is an example of a love that is not dependent on a thing. This is the love of David and Yonasan. Umashma aval stam ahava talui b'davar, and we can derive from this that the general case of love is based on something. So we have a stira. We're saying that the case of Amnon and Tamar teaches us that the stam case is not dependent, and the case of David and Yonasan is teaching us that the stam case is dependent.
Right. Because the case of David and Jonas is also an extreme case. Right?
Right.
So based on that extreme, you would come to the opposite conclusion.
I'm not really following the logic of this mashma. Why is it mashma? We said the love of David and Yonasan is not based on something. Mashma, the stam case is based on something. Why?
Because the case of extreme case, right? But a case which would not be so extreme, apparently that would be considered to be totally bedover.
I'm not following that. What does the fact it's extreme have to do with the underlying cause?
Well, again, what was it? We've discussed to some extent the cause of the love for David and Jonathan. Meaning that was the love of the essence, as they explained it. Jonathan, I mean, who's let's put it this way. Between David and Jonathan, whose love are we focusing on? David's or Jonathan's?
Jonathan.
Right. And the love between Amnon and Tamar, whose love are we focusing on?
Amnon.
Amnon. So Amnon had an extremely corrupt desire, you want to call it love, for Tamar. And Jonathan had an extremely pure love for David. So someone who would not have this, and the love that Jonathan had for David is referred to as an avet she'ena totally bedavar. So if a person would have not so pure ava for somebody else or for something else as the level of Jonas's pure love that he had for David, so that would be considered apparently to be a ava totally bedavar.
Because the source of the impurity is the thing.
Well, the extreme purity of the love Jonathan had for David was indicative of the fact that it wasn't totally for bedavar.
Right. So in other words, what you're saying is because the proof that the love was not totally bedavar is that it was so pure. Therefore, if it's not pure, it must be that it was totally bedavar.
Right, a love which is not so pure. Again, it doesn't have to be corrupt. It doesn't have to be corrupt like the love that Amnon Tamar. But if it's a love that's not on the level of the purity of Jonathan's love for David, that would seem to drop a level where it's ain't a totally bedavar, where it is, excuse me, where it is totally bedavar. Seems to indicate that.
Okay. I'm with you on that. So now let's go back to the first case. We said that the love of Amnon for Tamar was talui b'davar. Mashma that the stam love is not talui b'davar. How does that logic work?
Okay, so Amnon's love for Tamar was of an extremely corrupt type or level, intensity. Apparently, if there's going to be a love which is not so extremely corrupt, that should be considered to be a love which is not totally bedavar. Meaning the motive, the prototype of Ava totally bedavar is that extreme corrupt love of Amnon to Tamar. Apparently, if it's going to be less than that, it's not that extremely corrupt. it'll be in the category of Ava. That's totally, but ain't it totally badal?
So you're saying that because the example of something that's tali b'davar is so extreme, we conclude that the reason that example was used was because you need that extremeness in order to establish that it's tali b'davar. Therefore, if you don't have the extremeness, you're going to include the opposite.
Right, and the same way with David and with Jonathan and David, that it was also an extreme example. And therefore, if it's going to be less than that extreme example, you come to the same but opposite conclusion.
All right, so really what we're saying is we're puzzled by why the Gemara chose such extreme examples to illustrate these points. It should have, if it had chosen not extreme examples, then we wouldn't have come up with this stira.
Right.
So the question is, if in non-extreme examples, in non-extreme cases, does the principle apply? In a non-extreme case of Tului b'davar, does it apply that if the davar goes away, the love goes away?
Right.
And in a non-extreme case of low Tului b'davar, is it that if the davar goes away, well, there is no davar, so it can't go away. Can't go away. All right, so, all right, I'm with you.
Okay. So, okay, so now we're in the middle of the third line. The Perusho Gam Kein Kemoshe Amranu Lamala.
And the explanation is like that was what was said above. He ahavas Amnon the Tamar haya ahava atalui b'davar. Since the love of Amnon for Tamar is a love that is dependent on something, the Gamre.
It's Avatoli B'Davar Lagamri, completely.
Completely.
It's an Ava which is completely dependent on a thing.
Now, how do we make that logic step?
Okay, that was explained earlier. I'm not quoting that part, but you see from because with Amnon, since she was his sister, right? She was his sister, so the Torah forbids the relationship that he wanted with her.
Right.
So the Torah is something which is fixed and eternal. If a person is going to do something which is contradictory to the Torah, which is fixed and eternal, that means, in another way of putting it, the Torah is true. The Torah is true, and that makes it fixed and eternal. And the thing which is opposite the Torah is sheker. It's not true, and it's not eternal, right? And anything, only things which are spiritual can be enduring forever. Things which are physical must not continue to exist. They eventually are destroyed, nullified, dissipate. Let's continue.
I'm not hearing you, Rabbi. I don't know if you're speaking or not.
Yeah, so let's continue.
Okay, but I didn't, I mean, I heard what you said up until you said they dissipate. I don't see how that answers the question of how do we get this word completely? Maybe not. Maybe it's not completely dependent. Maybe it's partially dependent on the thing and partially dependent on something else. How do we know it's completely dependent on
Because she was his sister, because she was his sister, and it's also the Torah forbids that relationship. The Torah forbids that ava.
yeah,
Since the Torah forbids that ava, there can't be any spiritual content to such love. This has to be completely physical love. Totally Berura. You can't, because the dover is something which has to be something rooted in the physical world. The physical world can't endure. It can't exist forever and ever. Only spiritual things exist forever and ever.
it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be spiritual. Maybe he loves her because number one, she's beautiful. Number two, she's a good cook.
That would also be totally Berura.
But not completely, because if her looks,
the completeness comes because it's something which is forbidden by the Torah.
but if her looks go away, she has an accident, let's say, and she gets scarred, and now she doesn't look so good, but she's still a good cook. So maybe we say that part of the Devar is still there.
Maybe not.
It's not completely.
Maybe not.
Looks.
Maybe not.
All right. Anyway, let's go on. Ve'ein bezeh tzad she'eno talui b'davar, and there is not in this an aspect.
Oh, good. All right.
Which is not dependent on the thing. So that's exactly what I'm arguing against. Ki yesh ahava af al gav she haya talui b'davar. Since that there is love, af al gav means even though it's dependent upon something.
Right.
Makom, nevertheless, Eina talui b'davar legomre. It's not dependent completely. So, even though there's something that's dependent on something, even though there's love that's dependent on something, nevertheless, it may not be completely dependent.
Right. There may be some type of middle ground here.
Right. Ki af im lo haya oso hadavar. Since even if we don't have this thing, haya kan ava af al gav she vadai hadavar gorem ahava yisera. Here this love, even though it's certainly based on a thing. What's gorem?
From a grummy, it causes the Ava Yisera, the extra love.
It causes extra love. Makom, nevertheless, lo ne'emar bezeh ava talui b'davar legomer. Nevertheless, we do not say about this that it is a love that's completely dependent on something. Ulefichach Amar Eze Ahava She Haya Talui B'Davar. Therefore, we say that this is a love that is based on a thing. All right, now I'm completely confused. Help!
Let's finish the paragraph for now.
Oh, there's more on the next page? Let's see. I thought that-
Yeah, two more. We're gonna go over this.
Oh, I see. Okay, sorry.
No problem.
What?
Go ahead. No problem.
She'ein sad ahava klal rak bishvil hadavar, that there is not a perspective.
Aspect.
A what?
There's not an aspect. There's no aspect of the Ava at all.
Aspect of love at all, except because of a thing. Shetalui, that it's dependent on. Bo, it. Ahava zu. This love, ahavas Amnon v'Tamar. This is the love of Amnon for Tamar. She'ein tzad ahava rak sheyeh Amnon ohev es Tamar bishvil hamishgal.
Mashgal. That means relations.
Hamashgal is relation. Okay, so that there's not an aspect of love. There's only the only aspect of love that is in the case of Amnon, loving Tamar is because of the relation.
I mean, the physical relation, the desire for the lust for the physical.
The lust. Okay.
Yeah.
Uke asher avar ze haya kan shnia yisera.
That's Sina, the hatred.
Sina yasera. So, and when after this, it is here a greater hatred.
Right. Okay. So, all right. We're gonna need to go over this paragraph again.
Yeah.
I think you realize that. All right. So, Bez Hashem, we don't have time to go over it now. We can't run through this. We're gonna go over it again tomorrow, Bez Hashem. And Bez Hashem, it should get clearer. Hopefully, get a more of a focused understanding of what we're being taught here. Okay, but in the meantime, let's take a break because we'll have to stop on this point. It's not worth going over it again now. And we'll save it for tomorrow, Bez Hashem. And we'll pick up with the Mr. Bruce here in a few minutes, Bez Hashem.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you very